Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is the show where every other week I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week, following this season's theme, I'll be talking about an introduction and in itself, my introduction to romance anime. So just a little backstory before I even start. Back when I was starting to watch anime, I have basically pleated all the stock of action and adventure anime I had at the time, and for one reason or another I just thought, yeah, maybe it's time to get to romance. I think that may or may not have been prompted by something I don't actually remember, but the thing is, right, the anime we are talking about this week is, in my opinion, the best anime you can actually show someone to introduce them to romance. This anime is Toradora. So before I even start with the actual review, just a quick disclaimer. Spoiler alert, I will spoil everything from this anime. I can guarantee you that I will not give exact details, but I'm pretty sure I will talk about all the, let's say, all the parts that this anime kind of hinges in when it comes out to surprises and shock moments, more or less. Given that, as always, spoiler alert. Though, let's get started. First off, let's start with the stats. Toradora was originally light novel written by Yuyuko Takemiya, illustrated by Yasu. The original run was from March 2006 to March 2009, so 3 years with 10 volumes, and there was a spin-off in 2007 to 2010, and then we got the manga and the television series, the anime. The anime was done by the studio GC Staff, which actually GC Staff is a pretty big studio, all things considered. Some of their work are kind of mocked by being badly animated, but I don't actually see a big problem with them. That's just a little side note I wanted to insert here, because later on when I talk about other series in this season, GC Staff will come on a whole lot from what I remember. But anyways, that's not the point here. So the anime was done by GC Staff. The anime has 25 episodes. The original run was from October 2008 to March 2009. And that's basically it. Just a quick side note. The two openings... The first opening is pretty iconic. I think the name is Preparado. But the second one, I don't rate it so much, because it's pretty normal at this point. I mean, it's a pretty standard opening. The second opening, the first one, is pretty good. That being said, let's get to it. So why did I watch Toradora? So as I said at the beginning, Toradora was my original introduction to romance anime, eventually romance manga. I didn't actually read the manga for this, but the impression was so good that I evolved into this thing where it doesn't actually matter. I just read a lot of romance now, and that's basically me. So the impression was really, really big on me. Then again, Toradora is, for lack of a better word, is super vanilla when it comes up with the themes and the way the story is written and the way the characters feel and act, and that are actually the story structure and everything else. Why do I say that? For the most part, romance anime and manga nowadays are pretty gimmicky, let's say. So the last big one was Kaguya-sama, which is more of a comedy rather than a romance. The romance comes after, so that doesn't actually count. The ones I wanted to actually, let's say, focus on when comparing to Toradora is both Nisekoi and Gotobu no Hanayomi, or the quintessential quintuplets. Both of them entered the, let's say, the subgenre of choose one girl romance anime and manga, let's say, because the way the mechanic of the story works is that the main character eventually ends up with a harem, and they have to actually choose one of the multiple girls they have to actually end up with. Toradora is one of the more classic single girl, much like the one romance I reviewed in season 1, Aseto Seken, Sweat and Soap. And for the most part, right, Toradora is pretty vanilla in a lot of ways, because furthermore from what I just said, the fact that it is a, let's say, single girl romance, the story is pretty structured with the feet on the ground, let's say. The themes are circled around the school and basically social problems of the teenager kind, let's say. The anime never really goes off of this kind of track, let's say. And for what it's worth, as an introduction to the genre, it is pretty good at that. I think, just a little disclaimer aside, right? I will not be able to, because as a human, I cannot explain how much this anime is good. I just can't. This anime is so great, and I don't feel like I will make it justice to how much it is good. But as a first things first, right? Go watch it. It is pretty good. So now that I rambled about a bit of how I discovered it, why did I watch it? So it is a pretty vanilla romance anime. The whole thing is really laid out. It is short and sweet, although 25 episodes is what I would call a medium anime. It is, in terms of length, it is pretty nice. I really like the 25 episode model, let's say. The 2 cores kind of the we are doing nowadays is not really for my taste, because 2 cores effectively just gives 2 seasons of 12, and that is not the same, because I want to like watch the thing non-stop, right? So I want just to binge it. That aside, that's not the point here. Let's start with the actual story. So what's Toradora about? So first off, what is Toradora? Toradora is not really a word in Japanese. Toradora is the fact. So first we have to look at the character. So our main protagonist, the main guy, is Ryuji Takasu. Ryuji Takasu is presented first off as someone. First off, right? So he comes from a not so well off family. So this is all high school setting, normal high school setting, right? So Ryuji Takasu is the second year student. He has fairly they never actually show this, but he has fairly good grades, but he's more of a introvert kind of guy. And for what's worth, he does not have a father. He lives only with his mother, because at the start of the story we know that his father passed away when he was little, and basically the one thing that he, let's say, inherited from his father is the delinquent look. I don't actually know how to translate it to English, but basically the death stare. So at the beginning of anime, and they actually don't use this too much because at the end of the episode they more or less clear it off. But he has this delinquent look that people feel endangered by his look, more or less. They're scared of him, and basically that's it. But he is a nice guy. He does not hurt anyone. He's actually pretty pacifistic. And one of the things that we learn straight up is that he has this compulsory kind of anxiety when it comes to cleaning stuff up, tidying stuff, and keeping everything tidy. Not only that, but basically looking out for his mother, that is the only source of income. And for the most part, he's a pretty responsible guy. And that's basically it. And then we get to the main heroine, the main girl, Aisaka Taiga. Taiga is so symbolic. Oh boy, and this is a whole section in this episode. I have not really taken many notes for this episode, but this is a whole section I need to do. Taiga is the introduction to anyone who watches this. Taiga is the introduction to a genre or a trope, let's say, of personality in manga and anime heroines, that is the tsundere. So she basically is pretty, not only dishonest, but she tries not to face the fact that she's in love with someone by being violent and defiant at some points. Taiga in this case is especially violent, and across all the episodes we will see that she is pretty violent, although it kind of mellows out towards the middle to the end. There is let's say the high point at the more or less middle of the anime, and then from then on it kind of dies down, let's say just that. But she's impulsive, she does not know how to face not only the fact that she's in love, but her own embarrassment in front of people. So she freezes up, she kind of does everything else. And before I even get someone to think something, from the start Taiga is interested in a boy that it is not Ryuji. So Ryuji and Taiga at the start of the anime, they don't actually have a relationship. Not only in terms of love, but they are not even friends at the very start of the anime. Now, coming back to what I was saying, Taiga is so symbolic for anime in general, because I think Taiga, although she's clearly not the first tsundere ever in anime or manga, she is what I would call the culmination of everything that's a tsundere. She is impulsive when she is impulsive. She's a really well written character from all her flaws. She acknowledges it and she tries to live with it. And what I'm saying right now, it's basically a spoiler, because at the start of the anime, man, she's a wreck, more or less. It is pretty, I don't even know, she's pretty eccentric at the start, let's say. And the whole gimmick, the whole thing at the start, right? So Taiga is really short compared to the other girls in class. So she's 1.65 meters. I don't actually know how much that is in feet and inches, because feet and inches don't make sense to me, because I don't live in the States. But she's pretty short, and not only that, she's pretty short-fused. She's always angry and whatever. She's pretty impulsive, and basically she's eccentric. Let's say eccentric is the best word I can use right now. The thing is, right, so Taiga is short and really, really angry. So the class basically nicknames her Tenori Taiga, the palm top tiger. The imaging they use to it's a really little tiger. It's kind of cute. And Taiga, or Tiger as they joke in the anime, and Ryuji comes from Ryu is dragon, so Dora is tiger, and Dora is from Doragon. That would be the dragon part. So Toradora is tiger and dragon, because in folklore they say that the only animal capable to withstand a dragon would be the tiger from its power. So that's basically the play on words, let's say. So from that point on, we need to actually get to the other, let's say, main three characters, because they are supporting characters, and they actually are not the main characters, right? They are not the focus of the story, but for all intents and purposes, their presence is what moves the story forward, and they help a lot in a whole lot of ways. So there are three, but at the start I have only to present two. That is Kushida Minori and Kitamura Yusaku. So Kushida Minori is the love interest of Ryuji, so Ryuji is actually interested in her. And Kushida, at this very start, she's pretty strange. She's the... It's not actually a trope. It's kind of a trope, but not really. The oddball, let's say, the one who just says gibberish every time. And although she's pretty intelligent, she tries to, I don't know, make herself look weird for some reason. And for the most part, everything she does at the very start is pretty strange. It even comes into question why Ryuji likes her, although they kind of do get a kind of explanation out that because she is always forthcoming and energetic, and she works hard, because later on we discovered that she actually not only trains softball, but actually she works part-time jobs non-stop. So she just works hard and studies and whatever, and that's a thing, right? You at the very least in anime, you can actually like that. There's a romantic inclination to get from that, but that's not the point here. So that's basically Kushida Minori. She's strange, although she's hardworking and pretty energetic. She's the best friend of Taiga, which comes up a lot later, but let's leave it at that. And then we get Kitamura Yusaku. Yusaku is, let's say, the best friend, air quotes here, the best friend of Ryuji, and he's the love interest of Taiga. So Taiga really likes him, and the reason why is pretty strange, but the thing is, he kind of confessed to her before she rejected him, but after that, she, pouring over it, she noticed that she actually likes him, and that's basically a mess. But that's not to be locked into many details. Let's just get to the story, because I've already gone through it way too much. The thing is, so at the very, very start, we have these four characters. So Ryuji, Taiga, Minori, and Yusaku. And the first episode basically runs like this. The normal day at the school and whatever. And we get to know Taiga, we get to know Ryuji, we get to know Yusaku, and we get to know Minori, more or less. And at the end of the day, for one reason or another, Taiga is still at the classroom. Ryuji comes up and tries to grab his bag, and for some reason Taiga just tries to impede him and take the bag from him. And so they get into this kind of, let's say, kind of struggle between them to get the bag for some reason. And Ryuji eventually gets the bag and goes home. Okay. Later at night, he goes, grabs the bag, opens up, and see that there is a love letter addressed to Yusaku. And then he notices that, oh yes, apparently Taiga likes Yusaku. But when he opens the letter, the envelopes is actually empty. And when that happens, his apartment is invaded by the window. And when he sees it is actually Taiga who entered with a wooden sword and tries to bash his head in. And then there's this exchange where basically Taiga wants to take him down because she's too embarrassed to admit that she's in love with someone, and she wants everyone who knows about it to die, and so she can die after. It is pretty, when I say it like that, it is pretty brutal, but the exchange is kind of comedic at some point. And from that point on, they actually get down to business, they calm down, and Ryuji shows that actually he is pretty cringe when it comes to love, actually, because at this point Taiga thinks she's embarrassed because not only someone else knows about her crush on Yusaku, but actually she's embarrassed because it is pretty cringe to use, and I'm using the word cringe, but cringe was not a word back in 2010. Besides that, she's embarrassed because this thing about love letters and whatever is pretty outdated at that point by her standards, and she's embarrassed by it. And when it comes down to it, Ryuji shows her all the embarrassing things he's done for his crush, and so they come to this, let's say, this understanding, this more or less agreement of helping each other. So Ryuji will help Taiga get together with Yusaku, and Taiga, on the contrary, will help Ryuji get to Minori. And so that's basically the first episode. So the first episode gives off a weird vibe, I would say, but from this point on, the anime kind of starts working up. The second and third episodes, I think, they are pretty much just building the whole world around them. So there are more people in the classroom that kind of get introduced as side characters. They get to be the, let's say, the main crowd who says things outside of conflicts, outside of the main conversation. They eventually actually come up as not main points of episode, but their interaction with the main characters actually move the story too in a meaningful way. I don't actually remember all the names, that there are a lot of people, but simple to say, we get to know more people in the school, not only the classmates but also the teacher, that she becomes let's say a comedic relief later on, because she's single and she's in her 30s, and they make a whole lot of, not the students, but the anime in general does a lot of jokes with her. And basically that's it. From this point on, we get to see that Ryuji and Taiga become kind of, not at this point, they don't call it friends, but they call it more comrades in love, more or less. And so Ryuji, not only like Taiga begins to interact with him at school, but actually Ryuji eventually finds out that Taiga living next door, she lives alone in a really huge apartment for Japanese standards at the very least. I really think her apartment is pretty huge in itself, but there is this notion that she actually is pretty well off compared to Ryuji, and she lives alone with no parents in sight. And not only that, right? So at the point that Ryuji actually comes over, he finds out that actually she lives pretty much among the trash, because she doesn't clean after herself, she doesn't tidy up anything, and he basically compulsorily, he wants to clean it and help her because he cannot see an apartment so big and so beautiful, all messed up. And eventually he cleans it up and whatever, and finds out that actually Taiga lives off instant noodles and bento boxes from the convenience store. It all boils down to one thing. Taiga starts going to Ryuji's house to have dinner with him and his mother, and Ryuji eventually starts preparing bento boxes. He starts to actually prepare lunch for Taiga to take to school. From this point on, there is this whole nice first interactions with them both trying to help each other to hook one with the other, Yusaku with Taiga and Minori with Ryuji, until episode 3, when the initial more or less contract they start themselves at the first episode kind of expires, and Taiga basically just wants to leave Ryuji behind because there's no relation after that. And this is the first time when Ryuji's mother actually comes into the picture as an important cornerstone, let's say, to the series. She actually comes up a lot as a main character for a whole lot of the plot, a whole lot of the, let's say, the more or less the mentor kind of figure. She's his mother, right? So she will eventually give good advice. She's the mentor. She gives advice. She basically talks him into doing the right thing. That's more or less it. The thing is, right, eventually when Taiga basically leaves Ryuji behind, Ryuji's my mother Yasuko, she basically tells him like it really feels lonely. And this is the first time in the whole anime, 4 episodes going, that it does not, it kind of paints a flag, but not really straight up noticeable flag that actually having Taiga by his side is the right thing for Ryuji. So Ryuji actually notices that after such a short amount of time, Taiga has already brought him something else in his life. Not really at this point as a love interest, but really as a good friend that he wanted to keep contact with. Episode 4 though, I think it's episode 4, right? So quick side note, it's been more or less 1 week since I rewatched the whole thing, so recording this way too late for my own, it's my fault, right? So it is on me, this one. And I don't actually remember all the main episodes that things happen. I may end up getting some parts wrong in the episode number, but the things happen in this order, right? So I think it's episode 4 when the 5th main character, let's say, is introduced, Kawashima Ami. She is Yusaku's childhood friend, and she recently came back from moving out when they were kids to be transferred into their school. And she's magazine model, so she models for mostly, as they say in the show, fashion magazines. But at this point she has taken some time off for no specific reason at this point. And when she first comes up, she is basically the pretty airhead. So she's pretty and all, she's charming, but she's kind of out there. And at the very start, the first episode she appears in is just to set the tone for the relationships between her and both Ryuji and Taiga, because Ryuji, the relationship kind of changes a lot across the whole anime. And Taiga from the get-go is pretty just outright, let's say. It is pretty straightforward, let's say. So Ami has this facade at the very start that she's pretty and not very, let's say, very sharp and whatever, but that's just the thing she does in front of normal people, in front of, let's say, the people she wants, she has interest in and whatever. When they at one point when Ami and Taiga are alone, Ami kind of reveals herself as this spoiled brat, let's say. She's spoiled, she's kind of selfish and whatever. She's basically the total contrary of her facade. She's basically a total bitch, let's say. And Taiga, at this point, she's pretty straightforward. She reacts with the Taiga way of doing things. She just doesn't care about the facade, and she just nah man, that's pretty I will not follow your orders or whatever. And basically they don't see eye to eye from the very start. And also it's not like Yusaku doesn't know about that. He actually knows about it, and he shows Ryuji at the start where the whole thing happening. So they kind of go outside they go to this restaurant, and Ryuji and Yusaku go to the bathroom more or less, and then the exchange between Taiga and Nami happened. But Yusaku shows Ryuji the whole exchange. He kind of gets it's like, yeah, she has this facade to, I don't know, to keep herself sane. At the very start, it's not really well explained, but it is a bad habit that she has brought up with her from her work and her environment, let's say. And at this point, Yusaku already lays out what he wants to do with Ami by introducing her to Ryuji and Taiga. He wants Ami to be liked by the person she is, and not by the facade she puts up. So, and at this point, the anime kind of took me by surprise, because when it came up like this, I just thought, holy moly, this kind of deep, right? I was like, man, what the hell? I came here for romance. This is kind of a bit dramatic, actually. I'll talk more about that later, but this anime is pretty good. So from this point on, episode 4, we get 4 more episodes between building up the whole, let's say, the whole situation in the school, more or less, with the fact that the class now has a new student, that is Ami, and Nami is, they played it like she's out of this world beautiful. All the guys go absolute nuts, and everything happens, and it's a whole mess. And also, right, so at this point when Nami comes up and we get close to episode 8, we get to the summer, and they have the obligatory not cleaning the pool episode. It is not the beach episode yet. There is a beach episode, but it comes after episode 8. The thing is, right, so at this point in time, with the amount of companionship that Ryuji and Taiga have shown everyone, and at this point they are basically more or less stuck to the hip, because they are neighbors. They go home together every day. They always are together, both of them. And so people start to rumorate that they are together. But at this point, Taiga is interested in Yusaku, and Ryuji is interested in Minori. So there's this whole thing where they have to basically dismiss this kind of rumors and whatever, because to accomplish their objectives, they cannot have this happen. And it comes up later that Ami kind of gives off some hints that she likes Ryuji, but it is never actually confirmed at this point. But the hints are there, the things there. And so in episode 8, basically Taiga makes a deal with Ami that they will compete in the school pool. They have physical education classes, right? So at this point they have the pool classes, and so during the pool classes they will compete. So if Ami wins, she will take Ryuji to her beach house in the summer vacation, and if Taiga wins, Ryuji stays with her inside the home, right? So basically he does not get to go to the beach. And basically episode 8, they kind of there's this whole build up in episode 6 and 7, I think, when Taiga doesn't actually know how to swim, and so Ryuji takes her to train, and there's this whole situation between them, because at the same time that Ryuji cheers on Taiga, Ryuji doesn't actually shows it too much, let's say, more or less. And there is this whole at this point in this whole arc of the pool and the before summer arc, let's say, it is shown that Ryuji actually helps Taiga a lot in a whole lot of ways that you would think no one would do some things like that. So there is this whole thing where Taiga is insecure of showing up to the pool classes because she's embarrassed by her figure. I don't actually know how I say this without, and don't get me wrong, right? So she's embarrassed because she's basically flat. She does not have any breasts, let's say. And she's embarrassed because she doesn't have breasts, and she doesn't want to come up in public in a swimsuit with no guns. Let's just say like that. When Ami, in the other hand, is pretty stacked, and so there is this whole thing where Ryuji actually comes up and says, "No, I will help you," and he actually does get he sues a whole thing where it's basically let's say support pads. I don't actually know how to say this in English, but he actually gets pads for Taiga to go into the whole competition, showing up with an effort, let's just say that. And in itself, this whole thing is already like, oh my god, this guy is the real deal. I mean, nowadays we have this whole thing about being a simp or being a white knight and white knighting people and whatever. But the significance of the whole gesture of actually sewing up the whole thing to help her, just because it is something about her pride, right? So to help her keep her pride to herself, it is such a nice effort, right? So it is. I mean, nowadays if you see something like that, you call someone a simp. I saw that, and I just thought, God damn, this is pretty cute actually. The guy is actually trying to help her and doing a genuine effort, let's say. I'm not making a case about being or not a simp, but the thing is, at this point, we can clearly see that Ryuji actually commits to the bit, being an actual support to Taiga. And this comes up later. I mean, not the pads itself, but the combination of this whole thing actually comes up later. But that's not for now. So comes episode 8, they start to actually they compete and all that. But in between the whole kerfuffle, someone throws Ryuji in the water, and for one reason or another, I don't actually remember if he has a cramp or whatever, but he kind of almost drowns to death. And Tiger rescues him, and so there's this whole scene where things kind of get kind of pretty strange, because at this point, again, Taiga's interested in Yusaku and not Ryuji, but you can clearly see that something's brewing up. So that's basically this is the first real flag, the first real flag of Taiga likes Ryuji. And then we get to episode 10. Episode 10 is basically the first real let's say, talk with Minori. So if episode 8 is the first flag that Taiga plants that she likes Ryuji, episode 10 serves as the, let's say, the counter to it, where it basically so after the competition they save Ryuji. Taiga does all the whole scene, and they basically have this kind of dance kind of deal, but Taiga one-sidedly invites herself over to Ami's beach house, and it ends up being the 5 of them going. And so they try to, at this point, they try to prank Minori into going to the I think it's the, oh man, I don't actually remember the name of the fucking phenomenon. Oh, remember it, the suspension bridge effect. So basically Taiga comes up with the idea to get together, to help Ryuji get together with Minori. That Minori is pretty afraid of horror stuff, and they plan out this whole scheme of basically scaring her, and then Ryuji just comes up and helps her. It's more like of a prank. They don't actually put too much let's say effort into it, because they both know it's kind of a dumb idea from the start, and they actually get, let's say, counter pranked by Minori and Yusaku. But the whole episode ends up being an honest talk that Ryuji and Minori have about let's say finding love. It is a whole mess of metaphors, but it basically boils down into Kushida kind of giving up the hint that she is interested in Ryuji, but at the same time it is pretty ambiguous at this point. And so from episode 10, when there is this whole thing about the beach house, we have the cultural festival. We have 3 episodes of this, 4th episode where things just start to be kind of strange, and this is just from memory, right? So the whole thing starts with the cultural festival going well and whatever, and then Yusaku has basically a mental breakdown, because there's this thing about in Japanese culture. I don't know if this still goes on. I think probably might in some cases, some schools, but dyeing your hair from black to blonde is not acceptable by any standard there. And so the thing is, right, so Yusaku does just that, and basically when people have this expectation about him that he will be the next student council president, because he's the vice president right now, and the president is graduating in a few months. Everybody thinks he will take her place as the single candidate, but he refuses to it and starts going this basically a rebel phase. And so the whole arc is basically them, not only Taiga tries to help him a bit, but she concedes that she's not the one to actually help Yusaku at this point, because although she is interested in him, she recognizes that she's not close enough to him to actually know what he's feeling, and basically comes down to the fact that Yusaku is pressed by the expectation of being a good president, and actually is afraid of being the next president, because he has this whole complex about the fact that he being the president is basically he cannot uphold the legacy of the last president, whatever. But not only that, right? So, and I may be getting the order wrong here, but whatever. We get to episode 14. Episode 14 is the next big thing, and this is not something I talked about yet, but for the sake of the review, I think it's high time I talk about it. So they do this structural thing with the episodes. They never actually, there's no indication, but you can clearly see by the way the story is written, or actually at the very least shown. I don't actually know how much they adapted from the original material and the manga to the anime, but I can only guess. The thing I'm talking about is that from this point on, right, from episode 13 forward, there is this clear rush to the end of the story. So at this point in Toradora, you don't actually need to know how it ends to actually know how it ends, because the vibe is there. You can clearly see that Ryuji and Taiga are destined to be together. The thing is, you don't actually know how. And one of the things I really like that they do in this anime, and something that I like a lot in all the romances I read and watched, is that they introduce all the side characters and support characters that help a lot in everything across the whole series. And at the end of it, they actually have to, let's say, tie the loose ends of the secondary characters to give the ending a fulfilling, a sense of fulfillment, let's say. That is, I don't actually know if this is a psychological thing or whatever, but what I'm trying to say, right? From this point on, the anime starts going in, let's say, an order to tie up the stories and the resolutions of all the side characters. So the first one is Yusaku. Yusaku goes through this rebel phase, and then later on we actually are presented with the real deal problem, which is episode 14. So episode 14, for one reason or another, to try to convince him to run for president, Taiga and Ryuji get this let's say fake campaign going to basically bait out Yusaku to run against them to save the school, because whatever reason they have really fairly awful campaign votes, but campaign vows, but the thing is not that, right? So eventually Yusaku goes there and really runs for president, gets elected and whatever, and in his opening speech he comes up with, for the last president, the last student council president, there is a girl that is their senpai, their upperclassman. He goes to her in public and goes like, yo, imagine the situation, going in public in a loudspeaker, going like, I like you, please accept my feelings, in front of the whole school, and then she just like brushes it off. That destroys him. That basically just wrecks him top to bottom. And again, as with the rebel phase, Taiga concedes to Ryuji that he needs to help Yusaku, and they go confront the and at this point ex student council president And when she says what she says, she just brushes it off. So at this point, Ryuji goes to Yusaku to console him, and Taiga does what Taiga does, and impulsively, after getting to see that her love interest was interest in someone else, being her friend, his friend, right? She goes there and fights the girl, and I mean it. Like, she actually fights her. So she gets her wooden sword. The student council president gets a shimai, a training baboon sword for the Kendo Club, and they start actually fighting the classroom. And when Taiga like flails and gets disarmed or whatever, they actually go into punching each other, and it is, I would not say a well animated fight scene, but the way they animated it is just to emphasize what they are saying, because at this point they are bad mouthing each other, yes, but also Taiga just is slandering her, the council president, because she's a coward, because she doesn't actually want to admit her feelings for Yusaku, because it is clear by the way they, and it is never really shown this, but let's just say this goes as is. But she just calls her a coward for not admitting that the fact that she wants, she's also interested in Yusaku reciprocally, so they could be together, but she doesn't actually want to admit it, because she, the council president, is going to an university overseas, and Yusaku still has another year in school, and she says that she didn't want to acknowledge his feelings because she didn't want him to follow her and basically waste his future in the school and what he could do. So basically, just not make him influence him to like throw everything into the air and go follow her. The thing is, right, so this scene is such a mess, but it is so profound. I don't know, man. I think it just vibes with me. This whole anime just vibes a lot, and that's basically the whole scene. And so they come up in the classroom, and they actually say the things they need to say, and it's pretty nice. Afterward, Taiga gets suspended for 2 weeks. Yay! In the 2 weeks, we have, I think, one episode with Taiga being suspended that basically Ryuji needed to try to get close to Minori, but at this point Minori for some reason is avoiding him, and he doesn't know actually why. But basically that's let's say this is that's more or less it. So from this point on, we get a bit of I would not say it is not really a stretch, but we get a whole build up about a lot of things, and basically the next big thing is the Christmas party that they eventually, let's say, they eventually plan with the other students. The thing is, right, at this point, just a tight side story. At this point, when Yusaku gets rejected by the ex-student council president, and the fact that Taiga actually fights her and whatever, Yusaku is deemed the most unfortunate man in the whole campus, and becomes the the saint protector of broken hearts, something along those lines. And it's pretty funny because he goes with a whole strange getup and whatever. It's pretty funny. So from this point on, the Christmas party, the preparations for this Christmas party is its whole arc, where Minori actually is still avoiding Ryuji for some reason, and Taiga at this point became let's say the good girl. Her violent tendencies really died down from this point on. That being said, we get to see that Minori is really acting strange, not only lying about trying to so their interactions at school really diminish. She stops having lunch with the normal group. She stops going out with them and whatever. And at this point, it is pretty strange. So the preparations start. There is this whole thing where they get this really massive Christmas tree, and Taiga gets this basically a memento for her, a tree ornament that is this star made of, I don't actually know if it's glass, it's crystal, whatever. The thing is, Taiga really likes Christmas, and Minori by accident breaks the ornament, and it's pretty heavy stuff at this point. And things basically go down, and this is the start of the arc where they have to tie up the loose end that is Ami. Ami I have not mentioned much, but she actually pushes a lot of the plot forward after she gets introduced. So she starts up being basically a brat with Taiga and Ryuji, but eventually she becomes kind of a new person, more or less. And she has this whole question, the fact that why did she transfer in the first place to this new school outside from where she lived and whatever, and stopped working, was because she had this stalker guy coming after her. Simple to say, Taiga eventually chases the guy down, and when Ami sees how honest and straightforward Taiga is, she basically gets fed up with her own incompetence and goes after the guy and breaks his camera and whatever. And the guy basically gets his illusion totally broken and stops chasing after her. That's really the abridged version of the whole stuff, the whole thing that happens. And now at this point, it is her basically the start of her tying up arc, because as it comes out, not only she likes Ryuji, and I'm going really fast about this because it's been 1 hour and 20 minutes of recording. So basically, it comes out that she actually is interested in Ryuji, and she notices that Minori is also interested in Ryuji, but she doesn't actually want to admit it, and she tries to hide it from him. Later on, it comes up and in why or how, but the whole thing is, right, in episode 19, that is the actual party, Ryuji gets basically shot down by Minori because she doesn't actually even acknowledges that he wants to confess to her. And in between that, someone tells him that Taiga is basically alone at home, not in the party, not enjoying with anyone, the part of the year that she likes the most. So Ryuji just basically ditches the whole thing to go be with Taiga. Not directly, and it is pretty cute, but also kind of comedic. It's so touching at this point, and comes up again as the commitment that Ryuji has to Taiga. At this point, the line's kind of a blurry kind of deal. The flags are piling up at this point, but the whole combination of this whole thing about, at this point, the start of the wrapping up of Ami's story and the in-between of wrapping up Minori's story comes up in episode 20, when they have the school trip to the ski lodge. I don't actually know when or where. When I know December, January, but where in Japan you can actually ski. But that's not the thing right now. So at this point, Ami and Minori are at each other's throats because Ami made a comment back when Yusaku was rejected by the ex-student council president that Minori didn't take so well, and for what's worth, it's the reason why Minori has been avoiding Ryuji at this for so long. It didn't actually translate well to me when I watched it, but when I sat down to really analyze it, I kind of got it. But they use a whole lot of metaphors that don't actually, and this is more or less the fault of Ami as a character. She uses a lot of indirect metaphors, and I didn't get it first time, but later on I kind of got it. But really a bridge version. At this point, Ami is interested in Ryuji. That's not really a secret, let's say. But Ami notices that Minori is also interested in Ryuji, but she hides it. And the thing is, they start to discuss it a lot. The fact that actually Minori wants Ryuji to end up together with Taiga because she noticed that Taiga likes Ryuji, and she believes that Taiga needs Ryuji more than she does. And there's this whole oh man, it is pretty messed up. It is really, really messed up. Jump cut to the bit, right? Ami and Minori, they start to fight, not as strongly as in episode 14, but kinda. And yeah, eventually they make up because the present that at this point, this is a bit of detail, but what thing happened is that Minori at the Christmas party, Ryuji wanted to give Minori a present. For one reason or another, when Ryuji and Taiga are discussing about the fact that Ryuji was shot down, Taiga grabs the present that is a hair clip and gives to Minori in a context of being a present of a friend, and Minori uses it and whatever, and eventually loses it in between skiing. And Taiga, knowing the importance of the hairpin as a present from Ryuji to Minori, she tries to recover it. Taiga gets lost in the forest because she falls and basically hurts herself, not really strongly, but somewhat. And when it is pretty dramatic, the rescue scene more or less, but also eventually, obviously, Ryuji eventually finds her. As always, Ryuji comes up for the rescue of Taiga, and when he's carrying her back to the lodge, the Taiga in a haze says some really revealing things, and basically she says it all out. She actually at this point loves Ryuji, and Ryuji hears it, and oh man, it is the wow, it's the wow part of the whole anime. And from this point on, the whole thing just start crumbling down. The whole thing starts rushing down. Oh man, it's such a fast lane, because at this point everybody just wants to see what will happen when the cards are on the table, and that's basically it, right? So after this episode, cut it to the chase. There's Valentine's Day shit happens, and Ryuji and Taiga, not only they get scolded by Yasuko, Ryuji's mother, that I didn't mention much, but not only they get scolded by her because they lied about the fact that she wanted to get another job to help with the cost of Ryuji's eventual entering university and paying for it, but because she eventually collapses from overworking and Yuji has to take up her place and start actually working to help with the expenses in the house and his tuition, but his mother doesn't want him to work. And there's this whole thing about family expectations that not only mother to son, but son to mother, because he actually wants to help her, but she won't let him help her. And it is pretty tense. And so when they would get scolded, because Taiga's mother also appears at this point, they just escape. They skip town. And oh man, it's just so cute, this last 2 episodes. God damn it, it's so cute. The thing is, she just comes up and says, in 3 months I'll be 18. We will elope and we will get married, and then we come back. It is so cute. It is so much stuff happening at the same time, but it is so cute. And then their friends come up with a plan to help them. So Minori gives them money, and Yusaku basically misleads their parents, which is important at this point. And Ami gives them the keys to the beach house, and there's this whole stuff, and oh my god, it's so cute. But let's just already give you my opinions, because I'm getting to the end of the story. They have like 1 episode together. One episode where they actually finally kiss. They actually finally admit to one another that they are lovers. They want to be together with one another. It is so, oh my god, it's so cute. But it's short-lived. The thing is, and this is something that you can notice really, really quickly, they started trimming in the details a lot at this point, because there is this whole exchange between when Ryuji with Taiga running away, they actually go to Ryuji's grandparents' home, that he doesn't actually know his grandparents, because his mother's she actually ran away from home to be together with Ryuji's father and raise Ryuji outside of the household, because her parents obviously didn't want her to elope with the guy. It actually comes up that Ryuji's father actually ran away from Ryuji's mother with another woman, and there's this whole trying to rebuild the family, because when he gets to the house of the grandparents, and oh man, it's such a cute scene when he presents himself as Yasuko's son and his bride. It's like, oh boy, it's so cute. They actually they basically bait out Yasuko to come to the grandparents' home to basically make up with them after so many years of being apart. And it is just cathartic at this point. It's so cute. The Yasuko, I didn't actually mention her too much in the review, but she's a character so lovable. You can clearly see that she has flaws, and she knows it, She knows it, and she works in a way to, I'm not saying pay for her errors, but to try to raise Ryuji as best she can as a mother. And you can clearly see that it translates to him. It's pretty nice. Oh my god, it's pretty nice. It is one character that really, oh man, it's so well written. The thing is, they start trimming details at the finish line, because there's a lot of stuff that still happens from that. Basically, the last episode, and I would just say this before I even tell the ending. Watch this until after the credits, okay? That's just my advice. Watch until the end of the credits,
basically like a Marvel movie. But this after scene is pretty nice. I guarantee it. So the thing is, last episode they go back home, but then Taiga just skipped town, even after all the things. And when she skips town, she transfers schools. That's basically it. That's the end of the story. Watch to the end of the credits. That's basically the story. What are my thoughts? Quick stuff because 1 hour 30. Oh my god. Let's go. So this is, as I said at the beginning, I basically already gave out the whole thing. Animation is pretty mid. It's passable, I would say. In the fight scenes, I think the animation was well done. For the only reason that they emphasize what is being said more than what is being shown, but what's being shown is still important. They have, it's kind of rhythmic with what they are saying, but that's just me. About the story, my man, is one bloody good romance. It is so fulfilling. It is so cathartic at the end. It's so bloody cute, and that's basically the whole thing. Is just such a good package. The story is well written, the motivations are well written. All the side characters actually are people that have stories and development arcs. They actually tie up all the loose ends, and it all comes together at the end to basically to cheer on the main characters. It is so nice. I cannot find words to express it more than this. Watch this anime as an introduction to romance. This is the best introduction to romance you can ever find. Until, I mean, we are in 2023. I can only say this much. This anime is gold. It is gold, and anyone and everyone who asks for a romance anime to start, and even if they are still on the run, they already watched something else but never watched this anime is really, really, really nice. And that's the review. That's basically it. So if you like what I do, if you like the show, thank you for listening. If you want to support me, please share, please like, please subscribe, depending on the platform you're in. Please join the Discord. I hope you stick around for the next one. Bye.